Hello and welcome to World Talks. I'm Anna Kalczyńska. Thousands of protesters gathered across Slovakia on Tuesday as nationwide protests intensified against the economic policies of pro-Russian populist Prime Minister Robert Fico. The government's austerity measures, which it says will help cut one of the highest budget deficits in the European Union, have united the opposition, businesses, employees, labor unions, and many others. Now we're joined with Martin Hojsík, Slovakian MEP from Renew Europe, to focus on the Slovakia internal situation. Good morning, sir, and thank you for being with us this morning.
Good day to you too.
So Slovakia's budget deficit totaled 5.3% of gross domestic product last year and was one of the highest in the European Union, so it needs to be reduced. But what are the austerity measures specifically? What do they include and how drastic are they for the living standards of average Slovak family?
Well, after the Fico's inflation, and it's expensive goods, now what they're proposing is what we call Fico's poverty, because the result of the previous round of consolidation of the budget is increased deficit. So the exact opposite. While now the measures are even more drastic, increasing the costs for both the employees as well as the businesses, actually stifling the economy. And I think this is really the fundamental problem. Fico's government is trying to stifle economy, or actually stifling, as opposed to what it should be doing, should be restarting it, helping to, for example, invest into energy efficiency. And that's, for me, one of my favorite examples is the investments into energy efficiency, for which we have even money available. If you invest 100 million from subsidies, you actually increase the GDP by 130 million euros, and you generate additional revenue for the state budget in the height of 30 million euros. What instead Fico is doing is focusing on basically blanket subsidizing of the gas, which is predominantly imported from Russia. It's still protecting his cronies and ultimately and their businesses. And ultimately what it is doing is stifling the economy. The National Bank just few minutes ago warned that next year the GDP growth is going to be even more sluggish than this year. It's currently lowered the forecast for this year, and the governor said the forecast for next year is even lower, about 0.5%, and warned about losses of tens of thousands of jobs that are at risk for next year. So sadly, the content of this package is really bad. The second thing is the way the government presented and pushed through this package. It was agreed last night after the internal coalition fights on an unpublished package throughout the summer. It suddenly landed in the parliament in the accelerated procedure. The debate was essentially stopped, and the government pushed it through without any substantial discussions just last night.
So Robert Fico seems to be running out of options and stand against the wall. However, with those measurements that you've been mentioning, the GDP falling and job losses, unemployment in view, what does it mean for the average Slovak? I mean, are they really afraid of the situation? Are they of the precarity that's ahead? And can that really influence the situation politically?
Well, what you see is lower support for Fico's party. Also, opinion poll that recently came out put their support at 18%. Progressive Slovakia, which is my party, is about 22%. There is a general lower and lower support for opposition. Sadly, some of that goes to the very extreme right, so to the fascist party. Having said that, for the average people, the life is becoming really hard. The middle class is essentially living from day to day because what they see is lower salaries coming up. They see the price increases. We have inflation at 4%. So these are the challenges of day-to-day life that people are facing, and it's becoming increasingly hard for even the middle class. Slovakia, sadly, has one of the lowest incomes in terms of the comparison within the European Union. Only Bulgaria is behind us, and it's getting sadly worse. And this is the fundamental problem that the so-called consolidation package by the Fico government is not addressing. You don't get out of this spiral, downward spiral, by stifling the economy even more, when really it needs a restart. It needs to embrace the green and digital transformation, and it needs to profit from the future rather than trying to stay hooked on Russia and the dependency on it.
Exactly. You spoke of energy efficiency. Slovakia claims they need time, and it's a quote, to free themselves from dependence on Russia. So what is this time actually needed for? Is it for the political decision to be taken or for the construction of the gas pipeline? What are they talking about?
If I talk about gas as an example, and before, when I listened to your broadcast, I heard about oil, so I'll be happy to touch on that as well, because we have a similar situation in Hungary. Now, in terms of the gas, yes, we have alternative options. There is not only the pipeline connection through Czech Republic to Germany and Austria, and further on to the LNG terminals on the sea, but there is just few years old, brand new pipeline to Poland that leads onto the Baltic coast to the LNG terminal that is literally empty. And just this one pipeline has the capacity to supply the entire annual use of Slovakia. So that's not really a technical reason. Apparently, so the government claims, it's a bit more costly because the Russian gas price is basically at our border, while we would have to pay transit fees. But understandably, having a discussion about how to make sure that the transit fees are reasonable is a very valid one. But they still claim, oh, it's not possible. Of course it is. This is something we just today morning, Prime Minister Fico said, oh, it's ridiculous to cut the supply of gas from Russia. Everybody will be running to Russia once the war is over. I would say, well, then we should forget about Europe's freedom. Then we should forget about Europe's independence and autonomy. We should forget about our own freedoms, because let's be honest, with Putin in Kremlin, even a peace in Ukraine, which we all very much desire, doesn't guarantee that he will not start the aggression again.
Absolutely.
We have to be able to defend ourselves, and paying him via gas and oil is just undermining our own security.
Absolutely, it's a strategical choice. However, it's also a matter of pressure from the United States, and recently Donald Trump asking to cut from Russian oil by all the members of the European Union. Anyway, but let's now change the topic. Today, the Slovak Parliament is voting on a constitutional amendment that would restrict LGBTQ plus rights. What are the potential consequences for LGBTQ plus individuals in Slovakia if this amendment was passed?
I honestly hope that it's not going to be passed today, which means they're not actually going to put it to vote if they don't have enough votes. And this is something what is expected Prime Minister Fico to announce just in the afternoon, that they're going to delay it again because they're not having enough support for these changes. Now, sadly for me, this is about trying to divert the attention from the very daily survival problems that ordinary people in Slovakia have by creating some mythical evil that you can blame everything on. And I think this is a very dangerous precedent, because ultimately we all are equal. We all should have the same rights, and trying to go against a certain part of the population, it's going to backfire. So I really hope that Fico will not manage to get the constitutional majority, and they will finally give up on this and hopefully focus on addressing the real problems of the country.
Thank you so much, Martin Hojsík, Slovakian MEP, Renew Europe. Thank you for joining us this morning and for your insights, sir. And have a good day.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
And thank you for watching World Talks on TVP World, and see you soon.